It's a Football Friday. Zach Gelb here with you, WHIP, Philly's #1 college radio station, taking you up until noon Eastern time, where the Temple Sports Hour will come your way. Now joining us on the hotline, he is one of the most diligent men in the industry. You can catch him calling MLB on Fox, Rangers on ESPN Radio up in New York. But this week, coming up Sunday, NFL on Fox, Eagles and Rams. Kenny Albert will be on the call, along with Moose and Goose. Kenny, Zach Gelb here in Philly. How are you?
I'm good, Zach. How are you?
Well, I'm doing great. And, Kenny, I'm just wondering, when do you find time to sleep? Because especially last year during the Stanley Cup run with the Rangers, you were doing games between NBC and also ESPN for the radio. Now you're at Rangers practice today doing some shows, and then you have here in Philadelphia this weekend. Does Kenny Albert ever sleep?
Well, I probably wish I got to sleep a little more than I do, but to tell you the truth, Zach, last May it was real hectic, bouncing back and forth between the Eastern Conference Final and the West of the NHL, and didn't get much sleep during that time. I think rolling on adrenaline for the most part, but you just have to be organized with your time and get your work done early in the week. In particular, during the football season, I usually start on a Monday morning getting ready for that Sunday's game, and I tried to go to sleep early a couple of nights ago, but then watching the Royals and A's on TV, they go 12 innings, so I didn't get to sleep till 1 in the morning, and then my kids are up early, so when you have kids, that's where you really learn to appreciate the road and being in hotels, because you definitely get to sleep a little bit more.
And that baseball was incredible. It was a great scene in Kansas City. You mentioned baseball. Do you have a favorite out of the AL and the NL? Who do you like to get to the World Series?
I think it should be a great couple of weeks leading up to the World Series. I think you have to look at the Dodgers pitching when they're on their game. They'll be tough to beat. On a personal note, having lived down in the Baltimore, Washington area back in the early 90s, I think an Orioles-Nationals World Series would be intriguing. So, kind of would have liked to see the Pirates move on. A small market team that hadn't made the playoffs in so long until last year. The Royals are a great story. I think at this point, any of the 8 teams could wind up winning the World Series. But, again, just having lived down there, I'd love to see a Nationals-Orioles World Series.
It's definitely a possibility, and I also think that the Angels have a good chance, especially after all the adversity they went through the last 2 years, bringing in the big names, not being able to get to the playoffs. I think Mike Scioscia has that squad in a nice position.
No, absolutely. And you have the 3 California teams still remaining, so you have the possibility of the Freeway Series, and you can never count out a team like the Angels with all the talent they have as well.
We're spending a few minutes with Kenny Albert, NFL on Fox. We'll be in Philadelphia this weekend calling the Eagles and the Rams. Biggest take from last week's game up against the San Francisco 49ers was the play calling down the stretch. 3rd down and goal ball on the 2. They didn't run it, and they ended up throwing 2 balls, one to the left side to Brent Selleck. He wasn't able to reel that one in, and then the final one was intended to Jeremy Maclin, and Nick Foles didn't put that ball in play and give Maclin a chance to catch it. Were you surprised last week that the Eagles didn't run the ball on 3rd and goal from the 2?
Well, I caught the end of the game live when I got home. I was working the Jets-Lions game last week, and it was certainly an exciting finish, and unfortunately for the Eagles, they couldn't pull it out. But, I know that's been a big topic of discussion this week, but when it comes to play calling, I'll leave it up to Chip Kelly, because he knows a lot more than I do, and that the coaches study all of the different scenarios and situations, and they watch tons of film during the week, so it is easy to second guess, but for the Eagles, obviously coming in at 3-1, and the Rams, we did the Rams game 2 weeks ago, their last game against the Cowboys. They had a bye this past week, as you know, and I was pretty impressed with Austin Davis. I think, he's a guy that not many people knew much about. As a walk-on at Southern Miss, initially, was the 6th-string quarterback on the depth chart, and winds up breaking all of Brett Favre's records, and I thought in the Dallas game, his second start, he played pretty well. Got the Rams out to the 21-0 lead, or unfortunately for St. Louis, they wound up losing the game. But I think it should be an exciting game on Sunday, and hopefully a fun one for us.
And they finally did name Austin Davis the starter. But getting back to LaShawn McCoy, from you, is there any concern with him? Because the last 2 games, he's only put up 22 yards and 17 yards, although he is the last year's rushing leader in the National Football League.
Right, and that's certainly the first thing that pops out when you start studying for this game is what's taking place over the last 2 weeks. And we'll sit down with LaShawn tomorrow during our meetings, and it'll be interesting to hear his perspective. Obviously, a big storyline has been the movement on the offensive line for the Eagles with 3 different starting combinations and different starters on the line at two different positions. So you would think that certainly has an effect on it as well. But it'll be interesting to get his take on it tomorrow.
And they get back one of those offensive linemen this week, Lane Johnson, who was out for the 4-game suspension. Getting back Lane Johnson, does that get this Eagles offense off to a little bit of a quicker start? Because they struggled in the first half of these football games through 4 games.
Yeah, I mean, you would think so. Having a solid right tackle come back who's missed the first 4 games, and I know he's been working out on his own, and obviously hasn't been with his teammates for the last month, and getting in sync with his fellow offensive linemen. And I know looking at some of the numbers, the Eagles have barely had the ball. You talk about slide stack. In the first quarter, they've only had the ball on average for 4.5 minutes per game. And I know time of possession is something Chip Kelly doesn't really care about. It's more how many plays you're on, not time of possession. They finished last in that category last year, and they're last again this year. But, just controlling the ball, I think, more earlier in the game would probably lead to more success, and they've come on strong in the second half, with 40 points in the fourth quarter, but have not gotten off to good starts. And on the other hand, you have the Rams, who have scored on their opening possession in 2 of their 3 games.
Zach Gelb here with you, WHIP Radio in Philadelphia, spending a few minutes with Fox broadcaster Kenny Albert, who will be on the call this Sunday at the Link, 1 o'clock, Rams and Eagles. Eagles look to go 4-1 on the year. And in those slow starts, the one guy that's the Energizer Bunny that gets things going is Darren Sproles. That's been some pickup for them in the offseason. They got him basically for free for only a 5th-round pick from the Saints.
Yeah, he really is the guy that has had great success, obviously, and our crew with Bruce Johnson and Tony Siragusa, we've worked a lot of Saints games over the last 4 or 5 years. So, Sproles always seems to have at least 2 or 3 or 4 explosive plays per game, and only having to trade away a 5th-round draft pick certainly does look like a steal from an Eagles standpoint.
Even with these slow starts, it's really still amazing how this offense still finds a way to consistently put up 30 points per game. I know last week they didn't do it, but in the other 3 games they have. There's just so many weapons on the Eagles' offensive side of the ball. Jordan Matthews, the young receiver from Vanderbilt. You still have Riley Cooper and Jeremy Maclin. We just mentioned Sproles. It's almost impossible to game plan from them from an offensive standpoint. Greg Williams has a tough task on Sunday.
It really does, and Greg Williams back now as the defensive coordinator of the Rams, and he's just about seen it all throughout his career. But that's one of the intriguing matchups that we'll be keeping an eye on. Chip Kelly's offense and all the different things he does against the real good Rams defense. They lost Chris Long. They only have 1 sack over the first 3 games. They led the league last year, so that's a bit of a surprise. Robert Quinn doesn't have a sack yet. He had 19 last year. James Laurinaitis leading the way at linebacker, and they have some good young guys in the secondary. This is a team that, you see them lose Bradford, and you see them lose Long, and you think it'll be a long season, no pun intended, but, their defense is real strong, and they've given Seattle and San Francisco some issues, especially 2 years ago, Jeff Fisher's first year in St. Louis. The Rams only lost 1 of the 4 games they played against the Seahawks and Niners. And then offensively, you have an exciting young quarterback in Austin Davis, Zach Stacy, the running backs in his second year. The tight ends have done a real nice job with Jared Cook and Lance Kendrick. They caught 13 balls combined in the Rams' last game. And then wide receiver, a position that the Rams, certainly added to the offseason, bringing in Kenny Britt from Tennessee, who also played for Jeff Fisher, obviously, with the Titans. Brian Quick's really benefited from the tutelage of Kenny Britt, and they have guys like Tavon Austin and Austin Pettis and Stedman Bailey as well. So, even though they lost Bradford, I think their offense might surprise some people this season.
There's no question about that, because Austin Davis, as you mentioned, has looked really good this year. I know he's top 10 right now from a number standpoint in the league, throwing the football through the air. But you would like to see him get a little bit more help from his running backs. I would have to imagine a big point of emphasis from Coach Fisher has to be getting a good balanced attack this week.
Yeah, it is, and between Stacy and Benny Cunningham and then Trey Watts, the son of J.C. Watts, he had his first carries in the NFL against Dallas 2 weeks ago. But Davis, believe it or not, he leads the league in completion percentage right now. He's up at 72%. So, it was Sean Hill initially after the Bradford injury, and tweaked his thigh in the first half of that opening game, and Davis came in and without any reps that week, really, leading up to week 1. He didn't take any of the reps and played well, and they'll start him for the 3rd straight time this Sunday.
How much is that just really goes back to how prepared Fisher has his guys? Because when Bradford goes out, people are saying it's probably the end of the year for the Rams, and they only have 1 year on the 1 win on the year. But Austin Davis, he comes in, he does a nice job. It has to speak about the preparation of their head coach, right?
No, absolutely, and Hill is the guy that they brought in as the backup, and
Yeah.
they identified as a guy who's been around the league. You know, he started some games for San Francisco and Detroit, and he's the guy they brought in as the number 2. But then when he went down, I think Davis came in and opened some people's eyes, especially on the coaching staff. And you know, that's a franchise you don't want to compare him to Kurt Warner, who's won a Super Bowl and he's been an MVP, and he got to a second Super Bowl, or a third, I should say, with another franchise, but. They've seen it happen before with a quarterback, you know, when you least expect it back in '99. With Davis, you know, not only did he go to the same alma mater as Favre, but he's actually spent time working out with him. They have the same agent, Buzz Cook, down in Mississippi, so they spent some time together. And the other link is Brian Schottenheimer, the offensive coordinator, was Favre's coordinator with the Jets. So there's a couple of, you know, links between Favre and Austin Davis.
So how about that? Before we let you run, as we're talking to Kenny Albert, let's get to this Eagles defense. They haven't been that great through 4 games. We knew it was a question mark going into the season. Malcolm Jenkins has been a nice pickup. He's had a few interceptions this year, especially the big one up against the Colts in Lucas Oil Stadium. But Kendricks has been a big loss for this football team, and they've been hurt on both the ground and through the air.
Yeah, they have, and you're right, that's a big loss. You know, I like what Malcolm Jenkins has brought. You know, the Eagles can not only thank the Saints for developing Darren Sproles, who, of course, started in San Diego, but had some great years in New Orleans, but Malcolm Jenkins as well, who was the first-round pick of the Saints, spent 5 years there. So I think they'll improve. You know, I like what Bill Davis has done throughout his career at various spots. So, you know, this week they go up against a quarterback without a lot of experience and young skill position players. So we'll see what Davis has in mind for his group this week.
So Kenny Albert comes into town tomorrow. My question for you is, after you're done with your meetings with the coaches and all the players, do you go right and get a cheesesteak, or do you go back to the hotel?
Well, a cheesesteak usually is part of the weekend, but if I could throw it out there, Zach, tomorrow night, Lou Tribbiani was a beloved member of our crew, and he passed away 2 years ago, who lived in the Philly, South Jersey area throughout his life, coached high school basketball. And we are having the second annual Lou Tribbiani Memorial Scholarship get-together at Chick's Antiques right by the stadium Friday night. And we have some unbelievable auction items. We raised about $16,000 to $20,000 last year for the scholarship at the school down in Red Bank, New Jersey, where Lou coached. And we'll have some great items from the Eagles and the 76ers and some of the other local teams, ticket packages, jerseys, helmets. So if anybody wants to come down tomorrow night, it's for a great cause.
Well, it definitely sounds like a great cause, and we remember you doing the event last year at Chicky and Pete. So Kenny Albert from Fox Sports, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you again real soon.
Thanks, Zach.